I'm Scott Simi, Chief Content Editor for Indro Robotics, and on today's edition of our Soundbite micro podcast, I'm pleased to welcome JR Hammond, Executive Director of Canadian Advanced Air Mobility, or CAAM. Welcome, JR.
Thank you so much for having us, Scott. Great to be here.
So listen, for those who aren't familiar, just what is CAAM?
So we'll do a welcome for everyone here, Scott. Canadian Advanced Air Mobility is the national industry association here in Canada that brings together our industry, academic, and government all around the momentum of trying to expedite the operations of these new AAM aircraft in the country of Canada.
Now, why is this an important organization at this particular juncture in time?
And this is the powerful one. So what we've seen over the past 5 years as the advanced air mobility narrative has gone from some of that future Uber concepts of these air taxis into how are we going to make the supply across our aviation ecosystem in Canada is that we needed a centralized system across the country of Canada to take all the pockets of good work that we're seeing in Ontario, we're seeing in Quebec and in British Columbia, and start to link them together to make sure we had a national approach of moving this new technology forward, knowing that aviation is not segregated to just regions or municipalities. It's naturally an international focus in itself. So we created CAAM to really be that one central source, your one-stop shop for the developments of policy, regulations, and of course, industry connections en route to the operation of these new aircraft.
Now, most people have heard of these new sustainable aircraft, many of which are fixed-wing eVTOLs designed to carry passengers or goods. What advantages do you see to the addition of these over time in our airspace?
So there's lots of challenges as well as lots of advantages, as with any new technology. But the ones that we're trying to focus on a lot, Scott, are kind of based upon three principles. Number one, connectivity. Where can we move people, goods, and services with an aviation solution that makes better economic and environmental sense compared to a conventional aircraft performing that same route? So really looking at connectivity where these new electric and hydrogen aircraft can help unlock across our country. Secondly, as mentioned, on the sustainability side, when we have a higher threshold for the sustainable operation and transportation of goods and services across our country, where can we utilize some of the energy components that a hydrogen aircraft can perform to move goods over long distances compared to a rail or a ground transportation solution? And the last one we look at is that economic side. When we compare on a cost per mile basis, sometimes and in unique cases, the aviation solution in that medium and long distance range can be a better solution, especially in our remote north, compared to a ground or fixed base marine solution. So those are the three pillars that we look at in really trying to help bring in and create that business case for how these new aircraft could be applied across Canada.
Now, you kind of touched on a bit of an answer to the question I'm about to pose to you, but some business models, particularly in the U.S., point to air taxis as shuttling people or goods over congested cities. But there's also the possibility that these could service regions outside of major urban centers that don't have the infrastructure or volume to sustain traditional aviation. Do you see that as a pretty significant part of where this is all heading for Canada?
And this is a powerful learning that has come out of a lot of this work, Scott, where the initial model presented by the Uber Elevate white paper, focusing on relieving congestion in our cities as a result of these air taxis, it has quickly been proven that that is not going to be the case. We are just going to be moving traffic from the ground level into the sky, and it's not going to be an adequate solution for some of our dense urban areas. However, where we do see opportunities is where does the air taxi concept or the regional air mobility one complement existing modes of public transportation? Specifically, in Canada, where do we take a look at our Union stations in Toronto, our waterfront stations in Vancouver, and have those as public transportation nodes ground, marine, rail, etc., and bring in an aviation solution to help move those people, goods, and services more effectively. The key language that we like to use is it's not replacing any of our ground transportation, it's actually complementing. And this is where we get into some pretty exciting models, especially on those greater areas outside of our dense urban city centers of moving people, goods, and services back and forth.
So tell me a bit about how CAAM tries to influence the landscape or prepare for the integration of these new aircraft into Canadian airspace.
So yeah, the language we don't like to use is influence per se, because we're really learning live with our champions hand in hand through this, Scott. But one of the key pieces we focus on is how do we advocate for lessons learned from our experience nationwide and critically on the global scale. We know we don't have to go through those same lessons learned here in Canada, but it's actually a good opportunity to pull from all of the areas we're seeing in the US, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Western Europe, and of course, Eastern Asia, and say, what would make sense for a Canadian operation based upon our values, based upon our weather system, and the just natural geographic expansiveness that we have, that can then get us to a better ecosystem-based model compared to some of the other ones around the world. What we know for sure is that Canada does not have the economic or population density to support that air taxi concept as our go-to-market strategy. We need to find some of those near-term cargo, medical movement opportunities that have the high value and high impact for go-to-market, and then allow the ecosystem to expand upon there.
I was fortunate enough to join a CAAM organized trip that visited some of the leading American manufacturers in this space, Joby, Archer, and Wisk. Why are these trade missions important?
This is a critical part of our future success, Scott. We are really leaning into how we connect Canadian champions with some of the global leaders in advanced air mobility, like the OEMs of Joby, Archer, and Wisk, to ensure kind of three main things. Number one, what is the progress and tangibility of these OEMs? Number two, how do Canadian companies become a part of their value chain, knowing that the OEMs require the manufacturing of parts, pilot training, different technology developments that Canadian companies can be a part of? And critically, how can we look at bringing these OEMs into Canada for larger expansions amongst our existing aerospace base? We are very privileged to be able to build upon our commercial aviation sector into the AAM space, and these are what some of the delegation trips can offer as well.
I've noticed from your website that your membership base is definitely growing. What's the advantage for someone coming on board with CAAM?
So this membership base has actually been a wonderful surprise coming out of COVID, where typically we were only speaking to the AAM-based companies that were only operating in that space. And what our membership is now expanded to is actually a lot of conventional aviation organizations looking to expand and be a part of this new developing advanced air mobility ecosystem. What we are seeing is that the overlap between commercial aviation and advanced air mobility is actually coming closer together. And it's these folk that are seeing their existing business models, their existing processes being expanded in terms of revenue and global opportunities as a result of joining CAAM and gaining access to our ecosystem and, of course, our growing membership base as well.
On a slightly personal note, I'm curious, what's your own interest and background that brought you to this position?
So this is a little bit of the comedy behind here, but back in 2018, I had the opportunity, Scott, to go and attend the Uber Elevate conference in Los Angeles, which I believe was their second annual one. And at that time, the only positions that they were hiring for in the advanced air mobility field were requiring a 10-year NASA PhD aerospace scientist degree, as well as being a US citizen. And so I looked to myself and I said, well, I don't actually tick off any of those boxes. So how do I take my passion for aviation and sustainability and bring those together? And the only way to do that in Canada was do it myself. And it wasn't by choice of jumping in and being an entrepreneur, but it was kind of this is the only pathway that is now present and able to do this. So after returning back from Los Angeles in the Uber Elevate conference, I wrote a business plan of saying why I thought we could do this better and quicker in Canada and sent it to 1,001 people. And of course, as the story goes, the 1,001st person actually picked up the phone and said, "Hey, I believe in your vision. Why don't you come out to Ottawa and give us a pitch?" And that turned out to be one of our co-founders, Eric Lefebvre of the National Research Council of Canada, who believed in the vision, saw what we could do, and was one of the key founders of bringing the vision to life back in 2018.
Awesome story. I understand there was recently an international agreement that Canada signed regarding harmonization around certification. Could you briefly touch on the implications of that?
This is something we've been waiting for quite a while to go public with, but we call it the Five Eyes Agreement. And this is a combination of some of the leading, you can call them friends amongst the security industry, being the United States, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, coming together to say, we all have common interests in how these new advanced air mobility aircraft will be certified. How do we leverage our existing relations amongst the Five Eye countries on the security front to help expedite and harmonize the work that we can do for these new AM aircraft amongst our countries? So it is a good stick in the stand to start the progress in conjunction with what's going on at ICAO for more of the global 160 plus nations that will be requiring certification, but really moving forward with some of the leading countries around the world in that space.
Now, your enthusiasm around this space is really obvious. Why are you so excited about the potential?
Oh, this is super simple, Scott. I get out of bed each day excited to help progress this industry because I cannot wait to not only fly in these aircraft as a passenger, but cannot wait to fly them myself. I have a big passion, of course, on the piloting side between both learning to fly and bringing these new aircraft in. I cannot wait to be flying over the ocean, over the mountains of Canada, and seeing the world in an electric aircraft from above, which I still think to this day is the best office view on the planet, that from the flight deck of an aircraft.
Awesome. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Just the opportunity to share with the listeners here, there are so many near-term tangible pieces that will be coming to the market here in Canada in the next 3 to 5 years. So we've been working for the past 8 to get us just about to the starting line where we're going to start seeing some of these aircraft flying in Canada on the commercial operations, generating revenue. So please, please, please join in the journey. We've got lots of really good work still ahead across the industry, and we're going to need some bright minds to help us get us to the start line and then, of course, expand from there.
And one final question, and it's been kind of a burning question for me. What does JR stand for?
So this is the funny side. Nothing special. Jonathan Riley is my official paper name, but since birth, my parents have always called me JR, and that's what's just been resonating with me. So the people that call me Jonathan are actually the people that don't know me, and so it's got a quick tell of who I have a connection with. But JR has always been with me since birth, and that's kind of that familiar recognition of how I like to be called and show up in the world.
Well, then I am pleased to call you JR Hammond, Executive Director of CAAM. And JR, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Likewise here, Scott, and looking forward to many good updates coming in the near future as well with all the listeners.
Thanks so much.